It is exceptionally dark outside here today, but don't worry because we're covering Daredevil Season 2, and that's a show that seems to have a lighting budget of about 20p and puts me in mind of the football chant, "We'll play in the dark, we'll play in the dark. We're insert team here, we'll play in the dark." This fight does contain some flashing lights, but as long as you're okay with that, may I welcome you to Season 2, Episode 3, New York's Finest. This fight comes in two distinct sections. First, a 3-and-a-bit-minute long take in which we travel down the corridor and then down the stairs, and then a cut to swap to the other side of the doorway and a more traditionally shot fight sequence on the ground floor. But it's the first part we're talking about today. I'm Jill Bearup, storytelling via fight scenes is my jam, and on the previous episode we did on Cutman, which was the Season 1 hallway fight, my viewers, as always, aced it in the comments section with the information that there is actually a cut in this take, but it's because of child labour laws. You see, the purpose of the scene is Matt Murdock rescuing the little boy, and the scene ends with Matt carrying the child out of the room. But because they shoot on such a tight schedule, they had to figure out how the camera was going to move in the morning, and then by the time they were ready to actually film, it was the afternoon. And by the time they had the perfect take, which was the 10th or 12th one, according to Philip J. Silvera, the fight director, it was after midnight, and so the child actor was long since at home in his bed. So this part is a spliced in part of an earlier take. The preceding 4.5 minutes though, those were shot as continuous takes. They made it through the whole thing without having to stop a grand total of 3 times, and as it turned out, third time was the charm. Anyway, Season 2 of Daredevil introduces us to Frank Castle, aka Punisher, and where he and Matt are the same, and where they are different. The Season 1 fight showcases Matt's stubbornness, his refusal to quit no matter how badly injured he is, his need to protect the innocent. This fight is more of a metaphorical and literal descent, but not a fatal one. Full disclosure, I do like the Season 1 fight better, but there are several things in here which make it more sensible, objectively speaking, including some things which are supposed to be a demonstration of where we should be suspending our disbelief. Also, someone gets thrown down the stairs via chain, and also I recognize one of the stunt guys, but more on that later. The plot of New York's Finest goeth thusly. Punisher has kidnapped Matt, and they engage in a fairly intense debate on morality while Matt is chained up on a rooftop. Frank brings out Grotto, duct tapes a gun with 1 bullet in it to Matt's hand and says, "Okay, here are your choices. You can shoot me, in which case I won't kill this guy. You can shoot this guy, in which case I won't have to kill him. Or you can do nothing, and then you have to live with the fact that I'm going to kill this guy. And you could have prevented it, but you didn't." Matt chooses to shoot his chains to try and escape instead of shooting either one of the people involved, but this does mean that Grotto gets shot and dies. And then Frank decides to blow up some Dogs of Hell biker gang motorbikes. Probably not a great idea. Grotto dies, Matt and Frank fight, Matt manages to knock Frank unconscious, but then the gang members come after them both. So Matt leaves Frank in what I believe is a cargo lift, or just the slowest lift ever, and then he fights his way out in this scene, which, as I said, comes in 2 sections. I'm always banging on about why people are fighting in TV and film, because if you don't have a reason, it's just a bunch of randos knocking 10 bells out of each other, which limited interest, I'm just saying. So why did Matt get out of the lift and start beating up gang members? To save this one guy. Matt was in the lift with the unconscious Frank. He could have made it out having to fight only a couple of gang members on the bottom floor, but then this chap comes out of his apartment and now he's in danger, so Matt has to stop what he's doing, open the lift doors, and go and whoop some people. Because Matt is a hero and he won't let people die unnecessarily if he can prevent it. Unless it involves killing someone, obviously. But the other thing is that he enjoys this, maybe more than he should, and you'll see an example of that in a minute. The conflict of this episode, and the Punisher-Daredevil conflict in general, is that Frank straight up kills people.
I make sure that they don't make it out on the street again. I take pride in that.
Whereas Matt, there's something in Matt that refuses to do that. However, he's absolutely 100% okay with everything up to that point. More than okay with it, in fact. And look how happy he is about tricking the gang members with the unloaded gun. I mean, he won't kill you, but he also doesn't care how badly you get hurt. If you have hurt other people, he wants to hurt you back. It gives him satisfaction so to do. And yet, he will also fight to keep this random guy alive, and he won't let them kill Frank. Because it doesn't matter if you're a rando on the street or an actual murderer, he has to keep you alive, because redemption is possible. Now, we already used the names Alan through to Fred in our Season 1 breakdown, and I don't really want an M name because we already have Matt, right? So let's start with Graham. Graham with the dog tags, Harold with the thingy on his head, Ian, Jeff, and Kevin. Though, for reasons we'll get into, under normal circumstances while watching this episode, it would be quite tricky to tell who's who. Let's begin. Daredevil grabs Graham and threatens to shoot him so that the gang members free the old man. They free the old man, and Daredevil tells him to go back inside and lock the door.
What about you?
Oh, he'll be fine.
I'm good.
Because unlike this lot, he doesn't need light. I really appreciate this point, because while ideally as the audience we need some light to see what's going on, Daredevil doesn't, and so it's actually a very sensible move for him to douse as many of the lights as possible. This way we can have a silhouetted fight where Graham et al. Are trying to peer in the darkness, but Daredevil knows exactly where they all are. And this provides, for once, a reasonable excuse for the lack of light, while also providing an excuse for there to be some light, because he can't get to all of the lights to put them out just yet. In an effort to get around the pervasive darkness, I have upped the exposure on this significantly, but this is what it normally looks like. So if you were thinking, I couldn't have told any of these people apart. Yes, and that's kind of intentional. However, the last time I complained that Daredevil was too dark, physically speaking, I had a lot of people say, I never found it too dark, what are you talking about? Which leads me to believe that either we have very different screens, or they are secretly owls. Anyway, Daredevil smashes the light, which also has the effect of sounding a bit like a gunshot, and then hits Graham across the head with the gun and... no bullets. We swing around, and if this isn't a hidden cut, then it's a really smooth switcheroo to the stunt double. Listen, I love Charlie Cox, and as these seasons progressed, he did a lot more of his own fight stuff, but I'm not entirely sure I would trust him with a chain, even a stunt chain, for the more complicated sections of this. But I could be wrong. We hit baseball bat wielding Harold and the overhead light with the chain. We hit Ian, duck Jeff, hit Kevin with the gun, which is still duct taped to his hand, and then let Jeff hit Kevin. Kick Jeff again, knee Ian in the head and kick him again, throw Kevin to the floor, and punch him some more. Jeff's getting back up though, so hit him with a chain, then flick the chain at Harold, which makes the other gun go off, and shoot Graham somewhere presumably non-vital, but I don't think we see him again for the rest of the fight, which also prevents Graham from attacking Matt with the baseball bat he's presumably picked up from someone else. And Harold needs to stay down, by the way. As I said, I turned up the exposure significantly. This is what it normally looks like. You can't usually tell the difference between people. All you can see is that violence is happening. And I generally have a preference for being able to see what's going on, but at least this sort of fits in thematically with the fact that Daredevil doesn't need to see what's going on. And unlike something like Batman Begins, say, it keeps the camera fairly steady, so you can sort of tell what's happening more clearly even though it's dark, and it doesn't just resemble my darks tumbling around in the washing machine. You know? Even though you can't see the details of the fight particularly clearly, the scene continues the storytelling that we've been doing about Matt and Frank, because Matt is angry. He's angry with himself because he couldn't save Grotto, he's angry at Frank for putting him in this position, he's angry at the gang members because they're not nice people. And while there's often a sense of desperation and grit and determination in Daredevil fights, in this one you can tell that he's really deeply frustrated about the experience he's just had with Grotto and with Frank. Even so, there are lines he will not cross. The scene now implicitly becomes kind of a race. Matt initially gets out of the lift to save the resident of the building, but now he needs to get down the stairs before the lift gets Frank to the bottom, because these guys don't care about collateral damage, and they don't know that Frank is the Punisher, but they might just shoot him anyway when he gets to the bottom, because who's this guy? Kill him, I guess. So Matt, angry, marches down that corridor and takes out another light before he is confronted with Luke, who has a crowbar. Luke gets taken down before he can land a hit, but Jeff with his metal bar and Ian with a wrench that we didn't really get to see before are back up, and they are joined by, well, as I said, we have an M because we already have Matt. So they're joined by Norman, and Norman has brought a knife to the party. One thing I like about Silvera's choreography is that he treats Daredevil's super perception as an integral part of the fight. It doesn't matter which way Daredevil is facing, he doesn't use his eyes, and so he knows when Ian and Jeff are sneaking up on him, and he ducks Jeff's swing without even looking. Obviously the stuntman needs to look a little so he knows when to duck, but it's more of a perceive rather than a look. And I like that. Jeff gets punched in the face, Ian lands a couple of hits, but a jab to the stomach distracts him long enough that he gets his head slammed into the wall, and Norman gets a smack on the way through to elbowing Jeff in the head a couple of times. Norman, though, has a knife, but in this instance, maybe all of that duct tape is actually protecting Matt's hands. I mean, having full use of his hands would probably be better, but you take what you can get, right? Struggle, struggle, Matt throws Norman to the floor. Please make a note of that bare patch of floor, it will be important in a moment. And hey, here comes Harold with his baseball bat again. He gets hit in the face. A lot, and falls back down. maybe just stay down, my dude. Brain damage is not a good time, I'm just saying. Remember also that Matt is wearing his Daredevil body armor at this point, and so hits are going to hurt, but he's much better protected than these guys in their ordinary clothes. And I think that's another thing that gives this fight verisimilitude. Getting beaten by multiple bad guys with multiple weapons is going to take it out of you, but definitely less so if you have a superhero suit. And that does help to fudge kind of how ridiculous it is that he is taking on and beating this many people. Ian gets another smack with the chain on the way past, as does Luke, and Matt makes it to the door to the stairs, but Jeff has crawled off into a perpendicular section of corridor. You remember when I said, hey, look at that piece of bare floor? That piece of bare floor used to have Jeff on it. But Jeff got the Jeff out of there in the hopes of setting up an ambush. Shame for him that his opponent doesn't need to see him to know that he's there. Love it. Regardless, Jeff is thrown through the door onto the stairs, hit with the gun, and kicked down the stairs, whereupon Oliver joins the fight. But, you know, Matt has the high ground and all that. Matt defends a couple of machete, I think, slashes with his body armor, and boots Oliver into the wall, wrestling him to the ground and smacking him about. But here comes Jeff again. That man just will not quit. But being punched and thrown down some stairs does at least slow him down significantly. And here comes Ian again, who gets very thoroughly punched and kicked, and Daredevil is almost to the door of a lower floor when it bursts open, surprising us, but presumably not him, and is that Bob? I think it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one, the only, Bob the Russian mobster apple thief. Now he's in a biker gang. To be fair, a couple of the other stunt performers look a little bit familiar, but this one, like, that's definitely Bob from last time. Right? I'm not crazy. Or if I am, it's not because of that. This is, of course, another reason that you want to shoot action scenes in the dark, then you can't recognize the repeat stunt performers. So happy. Anyway, Bob, we salute you. Bravely getting your arm twisted up behind your back and repeatedly being slammed into a door frame before being thoroughly concussed by a door in a manner reminiscent of a scene where Wilson Fisk literally kills a guy with a car door that I definitely cannot show you. And I like that callback because Matt and Fisk, like Matt and Frank, have more in common than they'd like to admit. In the case of Matt and Fisk, this includes the inability to leave New York City. But they don't have everything in common. And when it comes right down to it, they don't have in common some of the things that really count. A couple of people came into my comment section to tell me how expensive it is to move out of New York City in my last video, and I understand that, I get that. However, if there's a literal psychopath who kills people on a regular basis with his bare hands, and he is specifically hunting you, I mean, breaking your lease is expensive, but like, dying is worse, right? I'm just saying. It's time now for another cool I'm going to avoid something without looking at it moment, and this time it's Kevin with his bat. And then hey, Harold, who was taken down with a chin when he was heading for the handgun earlier, has managed to get the gun for all of 5 seconds, before Daredevil smacks it out of his hands with the chin again, and then pulls him all the way down the stairs. Nice. Matt only pausing long enough to smack Kevin around some more, and then doing a fancy leap over Peter here before Machete Man Oliver is back. But not for long. And then Quentin enters the fray. Peter and Quentin keep the pressure on Matt, joined by a plethora of others until we're downstairs with Jeff again. Fair play, Jeff. Luke with his crowbar. We've got the wrench back in play as well, and boy, these guys have had a really bad day, haven't they? And cut. There follows another fight, which is cut much more normally, which is 3 against 1, and then an unexpected extra big guy, during which Frank is delivered to the bottom floor in the lift like a particularly battered Christmas present, but this is where we're stopping for our purposes. And I have to say, I really like what they did here. I do prefer the season 1 fight because I think the story reason behind it is stronger, and I love the desperation of it. In this fight, the stakes are Matt's life and Frank's life and the life of this guy, but that isn't quite as emotionally devastating as, at the end of this hallway, there is a little boy who really wants his dad, just like Matt did. That being said, this fight kicks off for a reason that I think we can all get behind, which is the protection of the innocent. And we get this interesting weapon combination for Daredevil in the chin plus handgun with no bullets in it that has been duct taped to his hand. And this gives us the opportunity for some quite interesting choreography, and for Matt to do things like break lights and do cool ranged attacks. And of course there's the body armor, which helps with the suspension of disbelief, so you can have multiple assailants with knives and bats and crowbars and I think a machete, and you can just have this kind of gloriously violent chaos. Because they aren't a standardized group, they aren't even an organized group, they're a biker gang. They don't all have the same weapons, they don't all have the same skill level, they don't all have the same level of motivation to fight, see Jeff, for example, and that provides us with extra interest too. I also like that even though it's dark and so you can't really tell, we're reusing the gang members. And I don't just mean Bob. I mean, we knock people over, Harold and Ian and Jeff, on the top floor, but they keep coming back. They keep following him down. The gang members might take a minute to recover from their beating. They might be out of the shot right now, but you know that they might be coming back. I love the staircase. It provides a really interesting multi-level space. And particular shout out to the camera operators, because that cannot have been easy. I mean, season 1 looked tricky enough, and it was all on one flat plane. Can you imagine going up and down stairs as well? Nightmare. And if you want to change from one camera to another, you have to have some way to hide that cut. My favourite Easter egg in this fight is the return of Bob, even though that's definitely not his real name, and I'm not sure that we were supposed to recognise him. I don't know if any of the others are also repeats from season 1, but if you recognise anyone, do let me know. I wonder if he turns up in the season 3 fight. That would make me so happy. Like, oh, Bob went to jail because he's both a Russian mobster and a biker gang member. And now he's beating up Daredevil again. I don't know, but I'll look out for him when I watch it. That being said, the season 3 fight is a 12-minute long take, and so I'm only gonna do that if you guys are like wildly enthusiastic about us finishing off this series. If you are wildly enthusiastic, leave a comment and let me know. If you'd like to see my breakdown of the season 1 fight, there will be a video next to my face. Just in case you're thinking, I haven't seen you in a while, Jill, I have been making YouTube shorts on just completely random topics for my own amusement, so that's probably why. Happy 1-year anniversary of Just Stab Me Now being published to you all, and I will see you soon.